I know a couple that in 1964 bought a house for $30,000. And they raised their children, and years later they died, and some of the children lived in the house for another 10 or 15 years. In 2008, they sold the $30,000 house for $800,000. $800,000. Then, a few years later, I know the house, a few years later, someone bought it. When they bought it, a few years later, they knocked it down and built a 2-story house on that property. Too big for the property, but probably went up to now $1.5 million value. That home that probably now would sell for $1.5 million, you could take that house, transplant it in another community, exactly the same size property, and it might only be worth $600,000. Because why? 3 words. Location, location, location. It's all perspective. The same exact house selling $200,000 less. Incredible. Incredible. The scriptures, well, it's not exactly location, 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 but it is exactly location, 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 if you understand it in this way. Where you plant your feet and what you look at is what you're going to see. And depending where your head is at as you plant those feet, you are going to see things perhaps exactly the opposite of what they are. Because the gospel, for one thing, is sure. It is topsy-turvy. It is often upside down, inside out. It's like Alice in Wonderland looking in the mirror and all distorted. You say, how can you see it that way? But that's how Jesus presents it. And the typical teaching of Jesus is the last line of the gospel. Thus, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. Nonsense. Nonsense. I see people who, when a big show comes or an artist comes that they've been dying to see, who will camp out for 2 days, and at 3 in the morning they're out there waiting to get their ticket. They want to be in the first row. Oh my God, really? So what if they were there and when they bought their ticket they said, I'm sorry, we only have one of the last row in the balcony, and then the day of the concert somebody came and got the front seat that they wanted? Not fair. So what is Jesus getting at? What does he mean, the first shall be last and the last shall be first? In this gospel today, he, again, is trying to describe the kingdom of God. So this is vitally important to all of us. We're talking about God's kingdom that we're all invited to be a part of. And in fact, Jesus will say, where is the kingdom of God? It's here. It's now. It's in you. It's all around you. You're in it. You don't have to die to become a part of the kingdom of God. You're in it right now. The only difference is location, location, location. Because if you're here, seated in church today, say, I got to get ready for when I die so that I can go to heaven, you've missed the point. Heaven is right now. God's grace is being poured out in abundance every minute of our day, in good times and in bad, in sunlight and in rain. It's there. Are we going to be recipients? It depends. Location, location, location. Where are you standing and how do you see it? Today in this gospel, Jesus hires these workers who then work the whole day sweating and becoming very tired. They worked for hours. And they were promised a just wage, which they got. But the only thing that makes this story so interesting and so strange is that as the owner went out into the marketplace hour after hour, he kept finding more people that weren't working. He said, well, come and work for me. Come and work for me at noon and at 3 and at 5. 1 hour left of daylight, and he says, what are you doing out here? Well, no one hired us. Come on, go work. Now, this owner, either he had a wry sense of humor or was kind of a creep. He could have paid them in the order that they came and worked and gave these people their just wage. And by the time that they paid the last people who worked 1 hour at the same wage, they probably would have been bothered. But he made it worse for them. He turned it around, upside down, topsy-turvy, inside out, and he said, pay them, give them all the same, but pay the last one first. So these people were anticipating, surely he'll give us more. And we gave those for 1 hour, then 3 hours, then 5 hours, and they didn't see the wage changing, but they must have thought, but surely, it's only fair, surely he will give us more because we worked so hard. And he gave them the same. And they were really bothered. Now, there's two pieces to this that are extremely important. The first piece, only first because it arises in the first reading. In that reading, this is the quote that God speaks to us through the Word. God's ways are not your ways. Your ways are not God's ways. Now we got to get this perspective down. Location, location, location. Do we get this? We were made in God's image and likeness. God was not made in our image and likeness. Okay? God doesn't look like us. If we look like Him at all, tell me, put on your thinking caps, when do we look most like God? Tell me. Don't everyone talk at once. When do we look most like God? When we are, what? Starts with an L. Loving. God is love. And when we are loving, ourselves or anyone, is when we most look like God. And so to turn it around, when do we most not look like God? When we are not loving. So life comes into our midst every single day. We're part of life and life is part of us. And it delivers all kinds of things. Some beautiful, graceful, wonderful things and some terrible blows, some painful blows, some things we can barely endure, to the point sometimes that some people in desperation say, God, just take my life. Take my life. It isn't worth it. It's awful. Take my life. Location, location, location. One day we can be rejoicing and praising God for all the goodness and blessings, and the next day wonder if we can even go on. And yet, our God keeps loving us the same. Does that mean He loved us more here and loved us less here? No, it's exactly the same. It's love all the time, 100%. God can't give 99%. God can't. God can't say, I'll love you a little more today and a little less today. It's always the same. It's pure, pure love. God is love. To be in connection with God is to be in connection with the perfect source of all life and all love. So if we get that peace, we start to understand in some way, if it's even possible, to understand this God that we worship, this God that we believe in. Pure love, all the time. Now we look at the other piece. We who are made in God's image and likeness, and sometimes we look like Him, but a lot of times we don't. And we don't when we're not doing much of that love. And so, the inside-out, upside-down, topsy-turvy gospel today says the first shall be last and the last shall be first. So the last come along, and they get exactly what these were promised, and they go home rejoicing. This is that perfect day. They rush home to their wives and say, you won't believe what happened today. This is the miracle of all miracles. It's never happened in my life. I went to work. I looked for work all day long. I thought I wasn't going to get any. It turned to 12, and then 3, and then 4, and I said, I might as well go home. There's no work. I guess we're not going to eat today. I guess we just drink water, and then boom, this guy appears and says, what are you doing here? Come and work for me. And I'm thinking in my head, there's only an hour of light left. Are you crazy, sir? Come on, work for me, and I'll give you what is just. So I went thinking I'd get a few pennies. He gave me what He gave the people who worked all day. OMG. I can't believe how blessed I am. So the last, who expected the last, got the first. And they felt so graced and so blessed and so loved. And it changed their lives. It opened them up to a deeper awareness of God in their life. What a blessing. But those who were blessed at the early hour, doesn't say the time, let's say 5 a.m. And they said, oh my God, how blessed we are. We're going to get work today. And did you hear he said he'll give us a just wage? We know what that means. He's not going to stiff us and cheat us. We're going to get a good wage. It's worth it. Let's work hard. And they did. They did. And they got exactly what they were promised. Exactly what they were promised. But they went home bitter and angry and feeling cheated. And he even said, did I cheat you? What did I promise you? This much? Well, did I pay you? Yes, but they went home angry, defeated. And perhaps their wives paid for it that night. Maybe they kicked the dog, you know what I mean? Everyone paid. Location, location, location. And the lesson is clear. Today, all day long, we're going to be hit by life. There's going to be some blessings, which we didn't expect, and probably we'll appreciate them. Probably we'll say, OMG, that's wonderful. But we're also going to get other things. And this could be the worst day we've had in 5 years. It could be for any one of us. We may get some news or have an experience that just uplifts our life, just pulls the carpet out from under us, and we feel completely destroyed. The question is this: if we end up in the last place, will we believe that God is there? Will we cling to God even more? Will we be able to say, God, there's no guarantee that life is always going to be good, and these bad days are there for everyone. Here's mine, but I believe in you, I hope in you, I love you, and I know you love me. And this too will pass like everything else. Because you are the God who is love. You are love. And you are my God, and you are within me, and I am within you, and every day is blessing. Truly, God, I believe the first will be last. And hopefully that won't be true for us today. But the best of all is the last can be first.